What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Vegas 117, Arnold Allen versus Melquizael Costa, and this is going to be my full card breakdown and predictions. This is a sick fight going down in the main event in the featherweight division, and it's in the Apex, in the smaller octagon. And what the UFC has really kind of been doing with these Apex main events is it's been the guy that's established in the rankings in the weight class, that has a name that everyone recognizes, versus a surging contender that has been looking really, really impressive. And that's exactly what we have here. We have Mel Costa, who has been on a very, very impressive win streak and is coming off of an unbelievably impressive performance against Dan Ige, to where he landed that spinning back kick on him and was able to put him away. And I don't think we've ever seen anybody stop Dan Ige, and we've seen the amazing fighters that Dan Ige has been in the octagon with. So for Mel Costa to be the one to do it, just incredibly impressive, and probably a big reason that he is getting this opportunity to step in there with Arnold Allen, a guy that is incredibly well-rounded, very skilled, and he's been at the top of the featherweight division for a very long time now. Fought a lot of the best featherweights in the world. He's got a tremendous skill set. I cannot wait for this main event. It's one of those cases, can Arnold Allen keep his spot in the rankings, or is Mel Costa going to crash the party and get the biggest win of his career? I absolutely love this main event. And in the co-main, we got the return of Do Ho Choi, a part of one of the greatest fights, in my opinion, of all time. Choi and Cub Swanson, and he's back to take on Daniel Willie Cat Santos, who's been looking really impressive in his past few fights. Been really putting it together, mixing things up. But we all know when Choi steps in the octagon, it is must-see TV. This is a really good co-main event. And then Malcolm Wellmaker versus Juan Diaz is a great fight, right? Malcolm Wellmaker lost to Ethan Ewing, a loss that hasn't aged particularly poorly, seeing how good Ethan Ewing has been since coming into the UFC. And then Juan Diaz, dude, this dude looked so impressive on the Contender Series. He's very well-rounded. He's got nasty power. This is a sick fight going down in the Apex. This is a low-key, really good card, man. We got a lot of great matchups on here. But without further ado, let's rock and roll right into this thing. We got our first fight of the night. We got Shauna Bannon versus Nicolle Caliari. So an interesting style clash here, right? With Shauna Bannon, she's got that karate-like style. She's going to be very bladed, long, darting in and out with these blitzing combinations, very linear movement, in and out, in and out. And what we've seen from Bannon is she's not exactly the most technical, but she makes it work, right? She'll explode into range, can land some shots, and if you do take her down, we've seen off of her back, she does have somewhat of a comparable guard, right? She does have some bit of a ground game. As we saw in this Tomar fight, I thought that she was down in this fight pretty big, right? And then she ended up throwing up the armbar and was able to get the stoppage. But what we've seen throughout her career, right? Came in, made her debut, ended up losing to Bruno Brazil, and it kind of felt like the UFC, once they gave her this matchup with Alice Ardelean, she was able to get the split decision, a very close fight. It felt like she was maybe going to be the next Irish star that the UFC was trying to build in a way, right? And then the submission over Tomar was impressive, and then most recently going out there 8 months ago and getting stopped by Sam Hughes, not the greatest of looks, right? I know that Sam Page, right, she can sometimes show up and put the pressure on you, the volume, and make it happen, but to me, not the greatest of looks. Coming into a fight here against Nicolle Caliari, who is really in a position to where I think that this could be a dangerous fight for Shauna Bannon, because as skilled as I don't think Shauna Bannon's particularly great, but Nicolle Caliari, she hasn't had a win in the UFC. And she's on the verge of losing 3 in a row in the UFC. And we know what happens when you start to drop and all these, L's, and you keep adding up the L's, like you may end up getting cut. So she's in a position where she got an impressive armbar on DWCS. We've seen throughout her career, like the Ernesto Caracate fight, that was competitive. Was able to take her down in moments, have some success. Right, and then most recently getting stopped by Carly Judice, but Judice is explosive on the feet, man. I think she's better than Shauna Bannon. So really what we have here is the explosive kind of in-and-out karate blitzing style of Shauna Bannon versus Nicolle Caliari, who's got that kind of Muay Thai-like style. She's got a little bit more flat-footedness to her. She's going to kind of plot forward, rip some of the boxing combos, mix in the kicks, rip to the body, rip to the legs. And if she gets to the clinch, I think she's got an advantage. She's got good elbows, good knees. And I think if this fight hits the deck, that is where Caliari, I think, has a pretty decent advantage over Shauna Bannon. Because if it's on the feet, I think it's kind of 50-50, right? Because Bannon will explode in, make some sounds, and it looks good to the judges. It sounds good to the judges. She has these explosive movements. But I think when she crashes in, that's where Caliari can look to tag her, mix in some of the leg kicks, work the body. And I think if Caliari can pressure her, get her hands locked and take her down to the mat, I think Caliari is the better grappler. We saw it prior to the UFC. She's got a very good guard. If she gets into a top position, she is a live submission threat. And I think she could definitely pull off a sub in this fight, but I'm going to side with the decision here for Nicolle Caliari. I just think she's a little bit more well-rounded, and I think that she's going to be very hungry to come out here and get a win because had the impressive fight on DWCS almost 2 years ago, but has not been able to get a win. A close fight against Cavalcanti, did get stopped by Judice, who I think is very good. I feel like Shauna Bannon is, I don't even know if she's better than Cavalcanti or Judice. So I think that this is a very winnable fight for both ladies. I think it's a competitive fight, but I'm going to side with Caliari. I think she can mix it up on the feet to kind of go tit for tat, outscore Bannon a little bit, and mix in some of the grappling where I think she holds the advantage. I can even see Caliari pulling off a submission. Got to be careful because we've seen Bannon off of her back. She does have a solid guard, but I'm going to go with Caliari here. I think she's a little bit more well-rounded and is going to be very hungry to come out here and get a win to hopefully stick around in the UFC. Not saying she's going to get cut if she loses, but we know how the UFC is if you're, dropping many fights in a row. So I'm going to go with Caliari here. I think she can mix it up and get the job done by, I'll say, 29-28 decision in a close one. Next, we got Daniel Barez versus Luis Gurule. This is a good fight, actually. And Luis Gurule was a guy that kind of came into the UFC, one of these Factory X Muay Thai guys, right? He had a little bit of, I don't want to say hype, but there was some hope for Luis Gurule because we saw prior to the UFC, he was a guy that just is known for being very durable, will push a pace on you, can outwork you, outgrit you, and not particularly great at anything, right? Just is okay on the feet, an okay ground game, but he just mixes everything up so well and puts a pace on guys to where I feel like that's something that could benefit him in this fight because we've seen Barez in a lot of his fights. We haven't seen him in over a year. One of the weaknesses in Barez's game can be the gas tank at times to where we see him slow down. And if he slows down in this fight, that's going to be an area to where I think Luis Gurule could potentially capitalize on him, right? Got the split decision on DWCS against Nick Piccinini, and, not the most impressive thing. And since coming into the UFC, he just hasn't been able to figure it out. Got knocked out by Ode Osborne, but to be fair, Osborne is lightning fast on the feet and very, very dangerous early. He got clipped, right? Got outworked by Jesus Aguilar, was getting outstruck by Jesus Aguilar, the guy with maybe the shortest reach in all of the UFC, so not a particularly great look. And then most recently got beat up by Alden Correa, but really no harm, no foul here because I think Alden Correa is the real deal, man. His boxing is super, super slick. And, I guess a participation trophy and kind of a victory in a way was not getting stopped by Correa. But here's the problem. He's coming into a fight here with Daniel Barez, who we've seen very little of in the UFC and hasn't been the most active fighter, right? Comes into the UFC, gets subbed by Jafel Filho, and listen, I know that Durden put on a great performance and kind of embarrassed Filho in a way, but Filho's a guy that we've seen is very good, and if the fight hits the floor, he could submit anybody just about in the flyweight division. So not a horrible loss, right? Was able to get it done over Victor Altamirano, who's kind of got a funky karate-like style, and then most recently losing to Andre Lima a year ago by submission. And I think Lima is one of the best flyweight prospects in the division. So not a bad loss there. This to me comes down to, does Barez fade in this fight? Because if he does, I could potentially see Gurule battling his way back into the fight if it gets into the mid to later rounds. But I'm not so sure that it's going to make it there. And I know that Alden Correa was not able to put him away, but I think that he is more of a precise tactical striker than someone like Barez, where I think Barez is good boxing and good striking, but he's a little bit more, I'm really ripping into these shots. He'll set some things up, but he really looks to try to shut your lights out. And I think in this fight, I think Barez is eventually going to find a KO on Luis Gurule because we've seen with Luis, man, even in the Correa fight, even though he didn't get finished, we saw him getting banged around, but we saw him getting knocked around, getting ripped with some nasty combos. I think Barez is not as good as Correa, but can replicate some similar things. Attack the lead leg of Gurule, mix in the boxing, some knees up the middle, I think would behoove him. I like that word. I was talking to somebody up, behoove. I like that word. That's a new word I might have to start using. That would behoove him to start, mixing in some shots right up the middle because I think Gurule is going to look to grapple in this fight. And we've seen Barez has good submission skills. So it's not like if the fight hits the deck that Barez is outgunned there. But I think Gurule, it's one of those fights where he has a little bit of power, but he's going to try to put a pace on Barez, pressure him, try to drag this fight out, and see if he can capitalize on a possible fading gas tank of Daniel as the fight plays out, but I don't think it gets there. I could see Barez taking the first two. Maybe Gurule has a good third round and we get a 29-28 Daniel, but I'm going to say Barez's power overwhelms a Gurule that I'm starting to get a little bit worried about his durability. I know he's 32, but once you see that chin crack, once you see him start getting rattled around by some guys that aren't necessarily the heaviest of hitters, well, I shouldn't say that because Ode Osborne can crack and so can Alden Correa. So he's been in there with some heavy hitters, but you know what I mean? Once chin gets cracked, you're getting wobbled around a lot more than what we saw prior to the UFC. That has me a little bit worried in here against a very dangerous guy in Barez. I like Barez. I like his skills, man. We saw prior to the UFC he's a finisher. I think he gets another finish here over Luis Gurule in a competitive fight at moments, but it'll be clear that Barez is out damaging him. He'll rip to the body, bring a shot around the guard, and get Gurule out of there. But if I'm Barez, I'm looking to throw knees up the middle to discourage the shot of Gurule. I think Barez is honestly better everywhere and the more dangerous guy. Not counting out Gurule, but I'm a little bit out on him a little bit off of what I've seen recently, even though the competition has been pretty good. Give me Barez by second round KO. Next, we have Ardelean versus Polyana Viana. So, a little bit of a toss-up here to me. This just kind of comes down to the fact that I think Ardelean is better overall than Polyana Viana. Now, I will say this. On the deck, Viana has a really, really good guard. And that's really where she prefers to play her game is she's like, go ahead and take me down. I'm going to pull guard. I'm going to bring you into my world. And we've seen that she could throw up arm bars, throw up triangles, and we've seen that throughout her career. Right, we've seen that she hasn't been the most active fighter. She's been around for a while. It's kind of crazy that she's been in the UFC for over 4 years. And it's not that her losses are that horrible. I mean, they're not particularly great. Like losing to Ricci's not terrible. Got the win over Frey a while ago, but that's her last win, right? 3.5 years ago. And it's not like, Jillian Robertson's good. She's a very good grappler. Jacqueline Amorim. So it's not like she's losing to bad competition. So I could definitely see Polyana Viana pulling this one off. I think this is going to be a close fight. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a split decision. Wouldn't be surprised if Ardelean, clearly wins it. I really don't know. I'm going to side with Ardelean, though, right? Because what we've seen from her in the UFC, yes, lost the close one to Bannon. That could have went either way. Lost to Melissa Martinez, who's pretty good. Beat Dos Santos. Most recently, taking out Montserrat Ruiz. I don't know, man. This fight to me is a coin flip, but I'm going to go with Ardelean. And the reason being, as long as she doesn't get subbed and doesn't kind of just play the guard game with Viana the entire time, I think that Ardelean can kind of outwork her on the feet a little bit, be a little bit busier, mix up some, leg kicks, mix in the boxing, blend things together. And I do think that Viana is maybe the better overall, jiu-jitsu fighter. But I think in terms of the grappling and the takedown skills, I feel like Alice might have an edge there. So close fight. I could see Viana pulling off a submission, but spending time on your back, especially if you're not being super active and you're just kind of waiting for the opportunity to throw up a triangle or some sort of submission, you're spending minutes on the bottom to where that will look good to the judges, to where Ardelean, I think, will be able to edge this one out. I'll say 29-28 split decision where Viana has some moments, throws up some submissions, nothing gets locked in. Maybe it does, actually, and the more I think about it. But I'll say Ardelean, she's been on a nice little streak. She's seems to be a little bit more active of a fighter. I think Viana's good. I think her ground game is good, but I think on the feet, Ardelean will be a little bit busier and will be able to kind of outpoint Viana in a very, very close one. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if Viana was able to pull off a submission or get this one done because her jiu-jitsu game is very good. But I don't want to bank on someone who's just going to try to probably play the bottom game quite a bit in this fight, to where I think Ardelean can bank minutes and mix things up a little bit better. Give me Alice to get this one done. Next, we have Andre Petroski versus Cody Brundage. You talk about one of the most untrustworthy matchups in UFC history. That might be this. This has got to be up there. Two guys that, how can you trust either one of them? How can you really be confident in a pick here? Because I actually have a double prediction. And I don't know if we could do double predictions, but I'm going to make a rule. I'm doing a double prediction. If Cody Brundage shows up and wants to win this fight, I think Cody Brundage actually beats Andre Petroski, because I think in a way Brundage is actually better. I think he hits harder. I think he's got better hands. I think he, in a way, I think Petroski's probably the better overall grappler, but Brundage, I think, can cancel out the grappling, outstrike Petroski on the feet, because we've seen Brundage has more power, and I think if he can land a big shot, he could put Petroski away, because we've seen Petroski is vulnerable to being KO'd. But it's just very hard to trust Cody Brundage. And I know when he's an underdog, we see these times where he shows up and actually, like Cody Brundage is so hit or miss. And he's a guy that it's so hard to count on him and pick him. And I do think if Brundage shows up and he has the right mindset, he's not going to melt. He's not going to kind of, fold as the fight plays out. If he comes in dialed in, I think Brundage not only beats Petroski, but I could see him knocking him out. But that's kind of what I'm banking on if I'm going to do that. Right, where at least I know with Petroski, even though I don't think he's as dangerous as Brundage, at least on the feet, I know that Petroski's at least going to kind of show up. But really, though? Right, because he got knocked out by Cam Rouston in the very first round. If you want to play MMA math, right, we saw Brundage have some moments. He was landing some good shots on Rouston, to where I think if some of those shots land on Petroski, he might be able to put him away. Right, most recently losing to Dante Johnson in a very close fight, was able to push him a little bit. Moicanico, Eric Mecanico, I call him Moicanico. I mispronounce his last name all the time. I don't know why, right? It looks like Moicano to me. I call him Moicanico. You know what? I was going to pick Petroski. No, I'm not doing it. I'm going to pick Cody Brundage, and I'm going to pick him by KO. I think he's going to knock out Andre Petroski. It's crazy, man. It's crazy that I'm about to pick Cody Brundage, but I'm sorry. I'm not impressed with Petroski, man. Am I? Am I going to pick Brundage? We're going to pick Cody Brundage, man. I've been wrestling back and forth with this pick, and I know it's like not super significant of a fight, but it's so like back and forth to me because like, do you see what I'm saying? Am I crazy? Like Petroski literally was going tit for tat with Adolfo Vieira, who Moicanico kind of lit up on the feet, right? And we've seen Brundage, like he's been in some close fights with some of these guys, like, and he's had moments in a lot of these fights. Like he had Rouston in some trouble. Right, he had Dante Johnson. He had some moments there, and those guys to me are way more dangerous than Petroski, right? It's just a matter of is Brundage going to be in the right mindset? He's going to back down if things aren't going his way, right? A decision win over Josh Frem, Dylan Budka, like, you know what I mean? Like, beating Vieira. And I thought Vieira won this fight. It was very, very close. He was calf kicking and kind of running away from Vieira. It's like Brundage hits way harder. Edmund Shabazian, I get it. Shabazian wasn't able to finish him, and Shabazian I do think is very good. Rouston got, blitzed over and ran over. Man, I don't know, man. This is a coin flip to me, and I see that Brundage is the underdog. So I don't pick guys based off of underdog or favorite, but I feel like Petroski is the better grappler in a way, right? His wrestling is pretty good. He's got a good submission game. I think he's got a better submission game than Brundage, but Petroski's not that great on the feet. He switches stances, kind of just spams calf kicks, and I could just see Brundage stepping in. If Brundage wants to win this fight, he will win. That's how I feel about it. I'm just kind of questioning, like, what version of Brundage am I going to get? Am I going to get a Brundage that doesn't look like he wants to be there, a Brundage that, because in a way you could say, well, how is Brundage still in the UFC? Right, but I guess I could almost kind of say the same thing about Petroski, even though he's won more fights. Right, the last time Cody Brundage won a fight, it was against Julian Marquez a year ago. But again, Marquez is a decent striker. Man, I don't know. I really don't know. I'll pick Petroski because I just can't. I can't trust Brundage, man. Can I trust? I don't know why I'm so back and forth on this, man. I have it written down that I'm going to pick Petroski, but it's kind of a double prediction because I really feel if Brundage wants to win this fight, he's going to win this fight. No, I'm picking Brundage, man. I'll go ahead. I will look like an idiot. That's fine. If I pick Brundage, I probably look bad. I'll say that he ends up knocking out Andre Petroski in this fight. What round? I don't know. I don't have I wasn't planning on picking Brundage. I was wrestling with this one. I'll say first round. I'll say Brundage comes out, wants to keep a spot in the UFC, because if he loses this fight, I think he's gone, right? It's kind of a miracle that he's still around, but we've seen these moments, man. We've seen these moments with Brundage, and he's been in there against some good guys, and I know, look what Dumas did to him. I get it, and that's the problem with Brundage. But if he shows up and he actually wants to win this fight, I think he's better than Petroski, man. I'm not impressed with Petroski. He's got a good ground game, good submission skills. I don't know that he's able to out-grapple Brundage consistently, and I don't know if he's able to submit him at least early. And I think on the feet, Brundage holds up that high guard, can kind of pick with the boxing a little bit, and I think he's got more power and more dangerous than Petroski. But if Brundage doesn't get him out of there early, I could definitely see him fading and Petroski outscoring him or possibly submitting him or getting him out of there late. But you know what? I'll roll the dice on this one a little bit and go with Cody Brundage. And I know it's crazy because Brundage is a guy, it's like, how should he still be in the UFC? But I think you could almost argue. And like if we give Brundage some of these matchups, I feel like he wins. I feel like he wins. I don't think he beats Shabbat. Like, I'm not saying these. I'm saying the fights that are being won here. And I know Vieira submitted them, so I get it. I don't know. This is like a what-the-heck matchup. I'll just go ahead and roll the dice with Brundage. Maybe I change my mind at the end of the week and actually go Petroski, but I'll take a chance to go on Brundage, man. I think he's the harder hitter, and if he wants to win this fight, I think he wins it. So I'll go with that. Way too long of a breakdown all over the place. It's a weird-ass fight, in my opinion. I'll go Brundage. I'll take a chance here. Next, we got Ketlen Vieira versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. This is a good fight, actually, in the women's bantamweight division, because Ketlen Vieira, I thought she actually won this fight against Norma Dumont in a way. Now, when I say that, it was very close, right? Ketlen Vieira's got a good ground game. Was able to beat Macy Chiasson, but we're seeing Macy Chiasson's been really fumbling a lot. Well, not fumbling, but she's been losing a lot, recently. Put up a little bit of resistance against Kayla Harrison, so in a way, that's pretty impressive, right? Was able to beat Pani Kianzad almost 3 years ago, was a good striker. So we've seen that with Ketlen Vieira, she's very, very physically strong, right? But in this fight, I feel like Jacqueline Cavalcanti can match her frame. And Ketlen Vieira's got a very good ground game, very, very good submission skills. She's got some power on the feet to where she will charge forward, overextend, land some big shots to where, if this fight is competitive and she's landing some big shots and she's able to slide some shots through the guard and catch Cavalcanti and rock her around a little bit, that is something that could potentially sway the judges to give the decision to Ketlen Vieira. And I think if Vieira can get the fight on, to the floor, I think she has a big advantage in the grappling, right? But she's got to get it there. And what we've seen from Cavalcanti, out of all of the WMMA fighters on the rise, the one that I've been saying I think is one of the best, if not the best, is Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Like, I think that she is a legit title contender. She is very, very technical, excellent striking, very, very good long, straight, clean shots down the middle, good front kicks up the middle, can pick and poke, have that kind of fencing-like style, the jousting where she's in and out, just kind of picking at you, keeping you at the edge of her shots. And we've seen her takedown defense look pretty good, right? In her most recent fight against Mayra Bueno Silva, we're seeing, Silva's just definitely towards the end of her career looking quite a bit washed with respect. I'm just saying Silva's clearly not the same fighter that she was a few years ago. And that was a little bit of a test because it's like, maybe the grappling of Silva. Jacqueline Cavalcanti didn't care. Right? Stayed at range, utilized really, really good footwork, was able to pick her apart. And that's what we've seen since she came in the UFC. And I've picked her in every single fight. And Nunes has some crazy power. So if Vieira can kind of replicate something that Nunes did, I think Vieira can make this fight very, very competitive, right? Was able to outstrike Nora the Great Cornholio, who's a dangerous, powerful striker on the feet, beat Julia Avila. So we've seen Jacqueline in some very close fights because she doesn't have a ton of power. And if she's not able to gain the respect of Vieira, I could see Vieira just kind of walking her down, getting her hands locked, taking her down, landing some of those bigger shots on the feet to kind of sway the judges in her direction. And listen, if Jacqueline Cavalcanti's underneath Vieira for long periods of time, she could potentially put herself in a position to possibly end up getting submitted. But I don't know that happens. I'm going to side with Jacqueline Cavalcanti in this fight. I think she gets it done by decision. I think it's going to be one of those things where she just keeps Ketlen at the edge of her shots, picking and poking, landing some good clean boxing down the middle, front kicks up the middle, kind of taking some wind out of the sail of Ketlen, attacking the lower leg, hindering some of the movement, and then just kind of picking her apart from range and gets it done 29-28 in a close one over a very tough Ketlen Vieira, who's got some power and a good ground game. I think it's a competitive fight, but I'm going to side with the technical striker I've been very high on in Jacqueline Cavalcanti. I think she's the full package. She's got the footwork. The takedown defense has looked pretty good, but I don't know that she's been in there with someone that can grapple to the level of Ketlen Vieira. I would not be surprised if Vieira wins this fight whatsoever. Cavalcanti's going to have to stuff some takedowns. I think she does. And if she gets taken down, she'll work back to her feet and will get the better of the striking exchanges. Not a ton of power, but very accurate. Lands at a consistent clip. I think Cavalcanti will get it done 29-28 in a close one. Next, we got Tommy Gantt versus Trey Ogden. Tommy Gantt. I like this dude, man. I like this dude, dog. Coming out of Raleigh, North Carolina, DC protege, if you will, right? Working with Daniel Cormier, wrestled at NC State. I like everything about Tommy Gantt's style. Now, what's interesting is he's 33 years of age. He's 11-0 as a pro, right? Got the win on DWCS 7 months ago over Adam Livingston and, backed him up along the octagon side, got his hands locked, was struggling a little bit to get him down. But once this dude grabs the body lock, you're not getting away. You're not getting away. And obviously a very high-level wrestler. And whenever you could take a high-level wrestler and especially put him with Daniel Cormier, right, and being, DC, majority of his career was at light heavyweight, he's got that kind of Like, if you can fight like DC, especially in these higher weight classes, right? That forward pressure style, get in their face, kind of dirty boxing, throw some shots in close, pressure the heck out of people, get a hold of them, dump them down, and just put them in the meat grinder. And I'm not saying that Tommy Gantt fights the same way as Daniel Cormier. I'm just saying that's a heck of a guy to be learning from. I think Daniel Cormier is one of the greatest of all time, right? And especially that American-based style of wrestling, blending it all together. And when you take a guy that has the wrestling pedigree of Tommy Gantt, and then you teach him jiu-jitsu, you teach him, at least a few submissions and how to have good submission defense, you're going to be in for a long night. You're going to have to be able to stop takedowns and be really good on the feet, in my opinion, to beat a guy like Tommy Gantt. Because what we've seen from him is if he can get his hands locked and take you down, you're in grave danger of being submitted and also in grave danger of being TKO'd due to ground and pound. And we've also seen he's got some underrated striking. It's coming along, 33 years of age, so a little bit later in his career, right? Coming over to MMA a little bit later, but I was impressed what he was able to do to Adam Livingston. Now, I will say this. Trey Ogden is a tricky customer, man. He actually is a very, very kind of safety, crabby guy because he's been in there with some good opposition, right? Ignacio Bahamondes didn't get the job done, right? The Nicholas Motto fight, Kurt Hollaball. I think at this fight he had Mota in a ton of danger, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of had him in a submission or so. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we've seen him, getting a win over Kurt Hollaball, not bad, right? Radzabanov, right? Thiago Moises lost that fight, but losing to Thiago Moises at this point, we've seen a lot of the up-and-coming guys find a way to kind of pull ahead of Trey Ogden. And Ogden's got, a 5'11", 72, he's 5'11", 72-inch reach. He's got kind of a long frame, right? Kind of a short reach, but he's got kind of the taller frame, can fight behind some good long-rangey shots. But really with Trey Ogden, he's not that dangerous on the feet. And in the grappling, his wrestling isn't that good. It's really his jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu is kind of his strength to where maybe Tommy Gantt makes a mistake, ends up in a position where Trey Ogden, is able to pull off something from his guard, right? Throw up an armbar or triangle, lock in some sort of guillotine. That would really be how I see Trey Ogden winning this fight. But I think Tommy Gantt is actually going to run through this guy, man. I really like Tommy Gantt. I like what I've seen from him. I think that he is going to end up submitting Trey Ogden in this fight. I'm going to say in the second round, and I think it's going to be a guillotine. I think that he's going to get his hands locked. He's going to take down Trey Ogden. Might even be earlier, right? But I got some respect for Trey Ogden's game. I think he's good on the ground. His jiu-jitsu is good. I think Tommy is the better athlete, more explosive. He's got dynamite, when he closes the distance. But when this dude gets his hands locked, you're getting taken down. You're getting taken down. He's got good sweeps, good trips, very well-rounded game, nasty ground and pound. It's not like he's just taking people down and holding them. He's a finisher. Nasty ground and pound, good elbows. And I think that Trey Ogden may wrestle back into him, and we see Gantt lock in some sort of guillotine. We've seen him do it before. We've seen Trey Ogden end up in that kind of position where someone's able to find a guillotine. I think Tommy Gantt is able to do that in this fight. I'm going to go Tommy Gantt, second round submission. If not, you could see him finding a ground and pound stoppage or just controlling Ogden, landing more damage and winning a decision. But I think Tommy will impress in the debut. I got high expectations for this guy. I think he's very good. I think that he can pass a little bit of a tricky debut test here in Trey Ogden, who's got a ton of experience. And I can't remember if Ogden has a win over someone like Daniel Zohuber or something. So he's got some wins, not a bad fighter, but I think Tommy Gantt is a little bit better everywhere and can negate what Ogden does well. Give me Gantt. Next, we got Tukos versus Ivan Erslan. This, to me, is a coin flip. I think it's a little bit of a coin flip fight because I think Tukos is decently technical on the feet. His striking is okay, but really his advantage here would be the grappling. If he could take down Ivan Erslan, I think he could control him, win a decision, possibly find a submission and find a way to get him out of there because we saw maybe a little bit of a similar matchup, right? Junior Tafa, brother, his grappling is zero. We know that about Junior Tafa, that essentially on the feet, Tafa can hang with just about anybody, but in the grappling, the dude is toast. And that's kind of what happened, right? Tafa had some moments on the feet. Tokkos was able to take him down and submit him. And listen, I think Ivan Erslan, in a way, is kind of like a Tafa bro, right? He's got dangerous power on the feet to where if it's in his world and he's able to clip you, you're going out. But if not, and you're able to get your hands locked and take him down and put him on his back, he's in some trouble. And that's what we've seen from Erslan, right? But I haven't been very impressed with Tuco, right? Got submitted by Umar Sy, and we're seeing that Umar Sy, not matching what the hype was, right? Got beat up by Navajo Sterling, right? Just kind of got outscored in that fight. Navajo Sterling's really, really good. But in that fight, I feel like we saw Erslan do better against Navajo Sterling. Again, MMA math for you, right? And he's coming off of a pretty bad loss to Jimmy Crute where he got dominated. But I feel like Jimmy Crute's better than Tukos, to be fair, right? Close fight with Ian Cutelaba. That's not bad, right? Cutelaba's actually pretty good. We've seen him pull off some upsets. So I'm actually going to go with Ivan Erslan in this fight. And I think he's going to get it done by KO. I think he's going to find the chin of Tuco. So I'm going to say he does it early. I'm going to say that he puts Tuco on the back foot, backs him up along the octagon side, starts to let some shots go, pumps out the jab, fires the right hand behind it, mixes in some shots to the body. And we've seen Tuco, specifically in some of these fights that he's losing, man. If you can back this guy up and you can pressure him, his striking isn't bad, right? We've seen it's pretty technical. The chin does slip up in the air. And if he doesn't get the takedowns, I think he's going to be a little bit discouraged in this fight. But if he does get the takedowns, there's a pretty clear path to victory. It's kind of a, do you think Tuco's can consistently get the fight to the floor? But even if he does get a takedown, can he find a way to get Erslan out of there? Very possible, right? And I feel like that's kind of what you're looking at. Tuco's to kind of hold his own on the feet. We've seen he's a little bit durable. He can take a shot pretty well. So survives maybe getting clipped, gets a takedown, finds a submission, or controls Erslan on the deck. But I'm going to side with Ivan in this fight. I think his striking is good. The guy's explosive. I kind of like some of the things that I saw in the Cutelaba fight. And again, he is losing these fights, and he's looking to finally get a win in the UFC. He hasn't been able to do it yet, but a close one with Cutelaba. Had some moments against Sterling. Again, not a good performance against Crute, but I think Crute is a better grappler than Tuco. So Tuco is okay on the feet. His ground game is pretty good. I don't think it's that great to where if Erslan, as long as he can sprawl and brawl, not make any mistakes, keep the fight standing, and even if he does get taken down, be intelligent in how you're getting up, don't give up your back, those kinds of things, I think Erslan can pick him apart on the feet. I think he's the more powerful and technical striker. I think he's able to find a way to get Tucos out of there and puts him away. First or second round, I'll say first round. I think he comes out aggressive, puts it on him, puts him on the back foot, and gets him out of there early. I'm going Ivan Erslan, first round knockout. Next, we got Nikolay Veretennikov versus Khaos Williams. This is an interesting fight, and one that I've went back and forth on. Because my initial reaction was Khaos Williams. And I kind of want to pick Khaos Williams to win this fight. But given what I've seen recently, and some of the things that I've seen in Khaos' game, I don't know if I can pick him in this fight. Because Khaos Williams, there's no question that he's got some speed. He's got some power in his hands. His boxing is pretty good. His calf kick is pretty nice, to where he does mix up things pretty well. The problem with Khaos is this dude is just not a good grappler. Now, if he's kind of refined that skill set a little bit and he can all of a sudden become a good wrestler, there's a clear path to victory for him in this fight, and an area that Veretennikov has very much struggled in, which is being taken down and having a problem with grapplers. Now, let's take a look at some of the losses, right? Danny Barlow, technical on the feet, close fight, got taken down by Vanderford, who's a good wrestler, got ground and pounded out, was able to skate by Francisco Prado, which we've seen Prado hasn't been particularly good, right? Puniello Soriano, who's pretty dangerous on the feet, has a solid ground game, coming off of a fast knockout over Nico Price that we all saw coming. I don't think Veretennikov is that great by any means. I think he's got some skills. I think his striking is pretty technical. He's got a good straight right hand down the middle, mixes things up well on the feet. I'm not that high on Veretennikov. The problem I have with Khaos in this fight is he just wings punches, man, where he's not the most technical striker. I know he's got power. We see him pump the jab, but he loads up and wings a lot of these windmill type of punches, to where if they land, of course he could put Veretennikov out. Of course he could land some big shots, out damage him, and win a decision. I think if Khaos wants to surely win this fight, he could mix in some of the grappling. But even if he does, I don't think it's like what we've seen. Like, that's not something that's necessarily maybe the most realistic thing, because we just don't see Khaos grapple a whole lot. Right? And what we've seen throughout his career, at least recently, right? Lost to Randy Brown, which isn't a bad loss, but that's almost 4 years ago. Close fight with Rolando Bedoya, not a great look. Knocking out Carlston Harris, most recently getting subbed by Bonfim, who's an absolute monster, and then Andreas Gustafsson, who just pressured the heck out of him and didn't even give him a moment to kind of operate, right? Just smudged him up against the fence. I don't think Veretennikov is that great of a grappler, but in this fight, he might even be somewhat of the better grappler, which is kind of crazy. And I feel like Veretennikov, if you're not grappling him and you're just kind of going back and forth, I think Khaos Williams could outgrit him and win a dogfight here. Very, very possible. But I think Veretennikov is the more technical striker. He's got a good jab, good kicks from range, and a good straight right hand down the middle. And I feel like if Veretennikov fights smart and avoids those big winging, charging power shots of Williams, where he blitzes in, his hands are down, and he's throwing these big looping shots, I think that's where Veretennikov can be sharper and just kind of land some of the more damaging shots down the middle. I'm going to pick Veretennikov to get this one done by a decision, but I think this is a coin flip. I could see it going either way. I could see Williams finding a way to put him away, even though Veretennikov is pretty durable. I could see Williams out damaging him and winning a decision. I'll say 29-28 split decision. Nikolay Veretennikov being the sharper, more tactical striker on the feet, mixes it up a little bit better and beats Williams' looping punches with good, clean striking down the middle. Give me Veretennikov with rather low confidence. I don't have confidence really in either one of these guys. And another thing about Khaos, not the most active guy at times, right? He's been out for almost a year. Maybe he sharpened some things up a little bit. I like some of the confidence that I think Veretennikov is going to have coming into this fight. Again, it's Nico Price. I get it. The flamingo, the goofy build of Nico Price, the funky style. So not crazy, but not like a crazy win, but a good way to kind of build up his confidence by him getting a pretty nasty KO. So I'll say Veretenikov's right hand is going to be something to watch in this fight. I think he can edge it out over Khaos Williams in a close one. Next, we got Timmy Cuamba versus Bernardo Sopaj. This is actually a really good fight. This is one of the better fights on the card, in my opinion, because I think Timmy Cuamba is pretty underrated. And Timmy Cuamba is a guy that I've actually picked quite a bit, right? In his last fight, I think I picked him in this fight against Chang Ho Lee. Holy shit, man. Chang Ho Lee is a smothering grappler. He's got really good back takes, was able to put Cuamba in some trouble, take the back, be able to get a hold of him, be able to control him in moments. But we saw Timmy Cuamba do an excellent job of fending off the takedowns, getting back to range, and landing some good, clean, straight shots on the feet. He's got excellent straight combos, can mix in some of the kicks as well. We saw his grappling defense was really, really good in this fight against Lee, who's got a really, really good ground game. Right, was able to knock out Roberto Romero with the flying knee, which was absolutely spectacular. Right, lost to Lucas Almeida, Balaji, but we've seen he's kind of bounced around the weight classes. And I feel like the bantamweight division is his home. And in this fight, he's going to have, a 5-inch reach advantage here? A little bit taller reach advantage. Now, I will say this. I do think Bernardo Sopaj could be the more dangerous fighter here because we haven't seen this guy in a little over a year. And in this fight against Ricky Turcios was having a few moments where I'm like, man, Bernardo, he's kind of letting, Turcios do a little bit too much, in my opinion, because I think Bernardo is a really good fighter. He's got power, really good striking, can switch up the stances a little bit, can rip nasty boxing combos to the body, bring the shots around the guard. His kicks are pretty good. And we've seen that his ground game is actually really good as well. So I feel like if he can mix things up, land some big shots on the feet, get to the hips of Cuamba, take them down, mix it up, land the more damaging shots on the feet, I could see Sopaj, outscoring him, winning a decision, possibly finding some sort of, finish. We know he's got power. We know his ground game is solid. But what I saw in this fight against Vinny Oliveira, and I think it was on short notice for Sopaj, had some moments early. Oliveira landed the highlight flying knee on him, almost 2 years ago. He hasn't been very active. So, again, 25 years of age, training at a really good gym over at All Stars, right? Alexander Gustafsson, Hamzat, I don't think he trains there anymore, but used to train there. They got some good fighters over there. Good coach, Andreas Michael. I think he's going to be prepared and have a good game plan. But I really like what I've seen from Timmy Cuamba, and I feel like the bantamweight division is his home. And I'm going to side with Timmy Cuamba, actually, in this fight to get this one done. I'll say 29-28 decision. I think that Bernardo Sopaj maybe takes the first round. He'll land the more damaging shots, put the pressure on Cuamba. We have seen Sopaj with the gas tank, a little bit of a question mark. Sometimes comes out very explosive, throwing big shots, mixing in some of the takedowns to where he starts to slow down a little bit. And I think if he does that in this fight, Timmy Cuamba's got a good gas tank. He's very technical, mixes things up very well. And where he was running into some trouble was against some, a heavy hitter like Balaji and, a technical, powerful leg kicker, and pretty well-rounded striker in Lucas Almeida. We've seen him putting it together. I like the performance against Chang Ho Lee, right? He's a very good grappler. I don't know that Sopaj is a better grappler than Lee. Obviously better than Lee on the feet, to where I think Sopaj is like more well-rounded than someone like Chang. But I think that this is a type of fight that Cuamba can fight behind the jab, utilizes long combos, and stick and move and outscore Bernardo in this fight. Maybe he can find a way to put him away. I think someone could definitely find a finish in this fight, but I think it's a competitive back and forth. I'm gonna say Sopaj wins the first round, and then Cuamba takes rounds 2 and 3. I like the well-rounded game of Cuamba, the footwork, the striking. I think he's able to get this one done against a very dangerous Bernardo Sopaj. I like both of these guys. I just want to sit back and enjoy the fight. I don't really want to have to pick anybody here. But for pick's sake, I'll side with Timmy Cuamba. I've been impressed with what I've seen from him, and I like his straight combos down the middle. And I think his takedown defense and grappling overall can fend off anything that Bernardo decides to bring to the table. Next, we got Modestas Bukauskas versus Adolfo Bellato. I feel like this is a tricky fight because for a while I was kind of, saying, listen, Bellato, I don't know if this guy's really UFC caliber. We've seen, he's a big, strong guy. I call him the Reptar of the light heavyweight division, right? Kind of a brute force. That high guard will throw those calf kicks, march you down, will take a ton of damage, and then eventually you start to slow down, cockroaches his way back into the fight, right? And then is able to land a big shot or something and find a way to put you out of there. That's what we've seen throughout his career. And what's so impressive about Bellato is I think in the UFC, he's like 2-1-1-1. So he's got a very, very interesting run since he's been in the UFC. But in the bright moments, we've seen him in a ton of trouble against Ior Potieria, battle back into the fight and find a way to get him out of there, right? The stuff with Jimmy Crute, the funky acting stuff. I don't know what the heck happened in this Paul Craig fight. Very, very odd stuff going on. And it was kind of weird because it felt like he was acting a little bit. I don't know. It was a very weird situation because Bellato was winning the fight. So it's like, I don't know. It was a very weird situation, right? Got outscored by Navajo Sterling. We know Sterling is very, very good. And coming off of a very impressive win against a hyped-up guy coming off of DWCS and Luke Fernandez, who's a good wrestler. Striking looked good. Fernandez looked good early. And then Bellato was able to kind of weather a little bit of an early storm and find a way to land a shot and put him out of there. And Modestas Bukauskas, a guy that kind of was up and down, found his groove, submitting Marcin Prokhnio, Rafael Siqueira, right, beating Ion Cutelaba in a close one. I thought Cutelaba won the fight. Was able to stop Paul Craig, most recently getting knocked out by Krylov. I picked Krylov in that fight. I don't know what Bukauskas, man. I don't know what this guy. I think he's the more technical striker. I think his ground game is solid, right? Training, I think, with Tom Aspinall, if I'm not mistaken. You could see it in his stance. He explodes in and out of range with the 1-2, but he becomes very, very, very predictable. Very predictable. And I think in this fight, I wanted to pick Bukauskas. And I actually think that he's the better fighter, but I can't get it out of my head of Bukauskas landing good shots early, damaging up Bellato, and then we've seen Bukauskas at times, he starts to slow down. And if you slow down in front of Bellato is not going to get tired. He's just not going to get tired. And his ground game is actually really good. So I don't think that Bukauskas can out-grapple him if things get hairy. Bellato's got a nasty leg kick, and I think he's the more dangerous hitter on the feet. And if you look at a lot of these wins from Bukauskas, like I know he was on a nice win streak and I was kind of high on him at one point, but I don't know, man. I really don't know with Bukauskas. I really don't know. That performance against Krylov, it wasn't particularly great. And I know he was having some moments, but Krylov was, he was starting to bang him up as the fight played out, and I think Bukauskas slows down in moments. And I feel like that's where Adolfo Bellato can find a way to capitalize and actually find a way to put out Modestas Bukauskas later on in this fight. I think Bukauskas has him in danger early. Bellato's able to survive it. We've seen Bellato is durable as it comes, man. This dude will get battered. It'll look like the fight's going to get stopped. He finds a way to battle back, and then you kind of get tired. You slow down. Then he's like a shark, smells blood in the water, starts to pressure you, and then eventually will land a shot and find a way to get you out of there. He's got good calf kicks. You could see him fighting behind those, kind of slow down the movement of Bukauskas. It's going to come down to if Bellato is prepared for the very simple game of Bukauskas. Bukauskas is very predictable, and I know, like I said, I think he trains with Aspinall. He throws that darting in 1-2 just like Tom. So as long as Bellato avoids that, I think Bellato can definitely win the fight. Now, of course, Modestas, to me, I think he's like the more technical fighter, right? He could stick and move, outscore him, win a decision, maybe find a way to, knock down Bellato, submit him, get him out of there, something like that. I think it's a close fight, but I actually think Bellato, his stock went up for me in this fight, man. And I know that Fernandez is relatively unproven, but a solid guy, a guy that's got pretty solid boxing combos and a good wrestling game. And we've seen from Bellato, even in the fights that he loses, like he didn't give up on himself. And I think Bukauskas, if you could put some pressure on him and you can make him doubt himself a little bit and you can kind of drag him into a dogfight, which is where Bellato excels, I could see him taking Modestas into that kind of fight. And I think that that's where Rodolfo can get it done. He can pressure you, mix the shots up well. I think he's the heavier hitter, and I think he can find a way to get this one done by a mid to late round TKO stoppage or by a damage-based decision. I think Modestas looks good early, and I think Bellato takes over a little bit late. I don't know if I'm overrating Bellato coming off of this performance or not, but I was impressed because at one point I'm like, Bellato's kind of a guy that isn't all that great at moments, right? Just kind of takes a ton of damage, waits for guys to get tired and battles back. But I think he's starting to put it together. 30 years of age, his ground game is solid, training with a good camp. I think he puts it together and finds a way to pull off a little bit of an upset here over Modestas Bukauskas. I think he gets it done, turns it into a dogfight. Next, we got Malcolm Wellmaker versus Juan Diaz. This is such a good fight. This is such a good fight. And the fact that it's in the Apex and the smaller octagon makes it a little bit better, man, because it's at closer quarters, not as much room to move around. And Malcolm Wellmaker just sucks all of a sudden, right? Because he lost to Ethan Ewing. Ewing took it on short notice, had a fight like the week before. The UFC calls him up. Almost nobody was expecting Ewing to go in there and do what he did. And obviously we're seeing just how good Ethan Ewing is, right? I picked him in his last fight against Esteban by round 3 KO, and we nailed that one, dog. Gotta toot my own horn a little bit, dog, right? Not a bad loss. And we saw Malcolm Wellmaker landing some good shots on Ethan Ewing. Ethan Ewing is a really slick boxer. He's looking like one of the best boxers in MMA right now, right? So this is a loss that hasn't aged bad whatsoever. And again, yeah, Ewing took the fight on short notice, but Wellmaker was expecting a completely different opponent to where he didn't really know a whole lot about Ewing. So in a way, it's a little bit of a tricky fight for Wellmaker as well. A fight that he was expected to win, but I don't think it's a bad loss is the point. And what we've seen from Malcolm Wellmaker, right, on the Contender Series, had that brutal right hand right over the top. The right hook was able to put him away, knocked out Cameron Simon, knocked out Chris Mutino. We have seen with Malcolm Wellmaker, he has some of the most one-shot knockout power in the bantamweight division. The dude's got heat-seeking missiles. He can switch stances on you. The problem with Wellmaker became, I think he fell in love with the knockout. And he became way too dependent upon spamming these hooks around the guard, waiting on the back foot too much, waiting to unleash these big power shots to where if he doesn't get the KO, he falls behind and gets outscored. And that's what we saw in the Ewing fight. Ewing was picking him apart with the boxing, staying relatively defensively responsible, and was able to just kind of out-technical him. To where in this fight, maybe Juan Diaz can replicate the same thing because this guy has been absolutely spectacular, man. On the regional scene, we just very, very good on the feet. Mixes in the kicks very well, can mix it up in the clinch. His ground game is solid. We've seen some good ground and pound. We've seen the nasty spinning back elbow. I mean, he is a fun fighter to watch. Great output, nasty power, really, really good striking. I like Juan Diaz a lot, and I think that he is going to be a legit player in the bantamweight division. In your UFC debut, that tells me how high the UFC thinks of this guy, man. Juan Diaz getting a Malcolm Wellmaker fight. I actually think that this is going to be really competitive. As long as Diaz doesn't get nuked by a massive Wellmaker hook on the way in, I think we're in for a little bit of a dogfight here. I think that this can be a competitive back and forth. Again, with Wellmaker's power, he can always find a way to put you out because, like I said, I think he has some of the most power in this weight class. But I think this loss to Ethan Ewing 5 months ago is actually going to make Wellmaker a better fighter. I think it's going to make him be more technical, not be so dependent upon landing that one big devastating shot to end the fight. I think he'll fight behind the jab a little bit more, switch the stances, mix in some kicks. I think we're going to see more of a well-rounded striking game with Malcolm Wellmaker. He's got to up the output, pull guys into his shots. Don't just spam these hooks and wait on the back foot all the time. Fight behind the jab, set things up, make them come to you, make them overextend, and find a way to catch them. You can't just bank on, especially as you climb up the rankings, people just kind of falling into range because I don't think Diaz is going to do that. I think he'll pick his shots well. He'll be cautious of the power of Wellmaker. And we've seen Diaz's very game, man. He's tough, he's durable, and he also has power and a well-rounded game as well. And we've seen Wellmaker. His takedown defense seems to be pretty good. Diaz, a solid ground game. I think Diaz is going to try to mix it up in this fight. I think Diaz is very live to pull this one off. But I am going to side with Malcolm Wellmaker by a decision. Maybe he finds the KO shot. But I got a lot of respect for the game of Juan Diaz, man. I love what I saw from him on the Contender Series. I thought he would win the fight, goes out there, gets the knockout. I like his well-rounded game. He's gritty. He's tough. I think Wellmaker is going to fight a more tactical fight to where he's going to be patient, which does worry me a little bit because if he doesn't land the KO, we see guys kind of rack up the volume and the output and put points on the board against Malcolm Wellmaker. But I think he's going to land some damaging shots. I think he's going to land something that does hurt Diaz, maybe puts him away. I'm going to say that probably doesn't happen. I think we're in for a good back and forth to where Malcolm Wellmaker gets this one done 29-28 in a competitive fight to where Diaz turns it on late and makes it maybe some hairy moments down the stretch if Wellmaker doesn't get a KO and this fight goes the distance. So I'll say Malcolm Wellmaker by decision. I think he's going to battle back nicely coming off this loss to Ethan Ewing, who is looking like the absolute real deal. Wellmaker's got some nasty hands, man, and heat-seeking missiles when it comes to the boxing. I think that he could get this one done. I'm not hopping off the Malcolm Wellmaker train, man. I think he's very, very good. Next, we got our co-main event of the evening. We got Duho Choi versus Daniel Willie Cat Santos. Now, I went back and forth on this one because Duho Choi hasn't been super active recently. But I like these OG guys that have been in the UFC for a really long time, and that is exactly Choi, man. He has been in the UFC for a really long time, right? I mentioned before one of the greatest fights of all time, in my opinion, against Cub Swanson. I'm pretty sure that's in the Hall of Fame. I think that got inducted recently, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, that was an amazing fight. And what we've seen from Duho Choi in his career, I mean, yes, he got knocked out by Jeremy Stephens 8 years ago, but 8 years ago, Jeremy Stephens, I know he didn't look good against Bobby Green, but he's a lot older now. He's not the same guy, right? Jeremy Stephens in his prime was the Freddy Krueger of MMA. Like, one of the nastiest highlight reels in MMA history is Jeremy Stephens. So if you get caught by Jeremy Stephens, he was a mean dude, man. Still mean, but really mean in his prime, to where Stephens would win some, lose some, but if you get caught, you're getting knocked out, right? And we saw Charles Jourdain be able to put him away. And Charles Jourdain, look how good he is, right? The Kyle Nelson fight, I know that was close. I get that. Knocked out Bill Algeo, most recently Nate Landwehr, to where he just beat the brakes off of Nate Landwehr. And we saw what Cub Swanson just did to Landwehr. Absolutely smoked him. I think Duho Choi is the more dangerous striker in this matchup. His boxing is really good. He's going to have a little bit of a reach advantage. He's the taller fighter, and he's got a ton of experience, and he's fought some really, really good dudes in the featherweight division, some real OGs with real knockout power. And we've seen Choi get stopped, but he's been in there against some heavy hitters. And Willie Cat Santos, as good as I think he is, he's not a heavy hitter, anything like a Jeremy Stephens or a Cub Swanson or anything like that. But what we have seen from Willie Cat as a guy with the weight stuff going on, I feel like this is his weight class, right? A guy that was, I guess, struggling with weight. I can't remember specifically, but I do remember, I think, ripping on Santos for, I don't know if he was missing weight or what was going on there, but I feel like this is his weight class. And what we've seen, he's very dangerous. Training over at Shoot the Box, very much has that style. Aggressive forward pressure Muay Thai, solid hands, mixes in the knees, the elbows, right? Some flying, front kicks up the middle, jumping front kicks, scissor knees. Like, he is the full package on the feet. And what we've seen recently, right? Getting it done over Munoz Jr., the finish over Castaneda was very impressive. Over Lee was very impressive. Over Yu, who was a very, very, hyped up guy, was looking very, very dangerous on the feet. I feel like Daniel Santos is going to be able to grit this one out and get it done by a decision, but I'm kind of low-key rooting for Duho Choi in this fight. I really like Choi. I'm a fan of his, man. I think he's so fun to watch. His striking is crisp. His boxing is very, very technical, and I think that he has the ability to put Santos away. He's got nasty power, good combinations, good takedown. Even though he gets taken down, finds a way to work back to his feet. He can mix it up really well. That laser beam of a right hand and a jab that he can put on you. I like Duho Choi, man. I really like this guy. He's a ton of fun to watch. He's been in some great fights. But I feel like at this point in time, a little bit of the inactivity, 35 years of age, I think he's still got a ton of gas left in the tank, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like Willie Cat is one of those guys to where he can mix it up a little bit better. He can mix in some of the boxing, in the clinch, mix in some of the takedowns to keep Choi guessing, make him a little bit maybe more hesitant on the feet, attack the lead leg because we see Choi in that kind of long bladed stance to kind of look to box. I feel like that's where Santos can mix in some of the leg kicks. But we've seen Choi, man, can never count him out. He's got power. He's been in there with some really good fighters. He's got a ton of experience. But I am going to side with Santos to get this one done. I'll say 29-28. I'll say Choi. I'll pick it a lot of 29-28s. I think a lot of these fights are close, man. So I'm going to say Choi by decision. I think his boxing will be enough to get Santos in trouble at some point in this fight. And I could definitely see Choi knocking him out. I definitely think that that's a real possibility in this fight. But I think Santos will mix it up better, attack the lead leg of Choi, mix in some of the takedowns. And we've seen that he can fight a very high-paced type of fight. And this performance against Yu was very, very impressive because we've seen Yu as a very, very good striker. I know a guy that had a ton of hype, was early in the UFC, but still very, very good striker. I think Choi's a little bit better, but I think Santos can find a way to get it done by mixing things up and get it done by a close decision. But like I said, I like Choi a lot, man. Next, we got our main event of the evening. If you guys are enjoying this video, if you could do me a favor, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and also hype the video. I would greatly appreciate it. Our main event, this is such a good fight, man. A sick fight. Arnold Allen is a guy, here's a guy, that at one point I felt like was overrated. And then now we're to the point where I think he's the favorite coming in, so not necessarily underrated, but in a way is underrated, right? It was like that he was overrated, then now to me he's underrated. I think Arnold Allen is one of the most technical fighters in the featherweight division. And he's been in there with some of the best featherweights in the weight class, right? The win over Cavalcanti, again, there was the injury, was in there with Max Holloway in a 5-rounder, was landing some good shots, and we know that Holloway's one of the best 45ers of all time, and that was 3 years ago, right? So that was like a really, really, really good, not that, I mean, Max is still really good, but you get what I'm saying. A featherweight Max 3 years ago, really, really fast, really, really slick, a little bit of a, even though Holloway's still really good, I feel like 3 years ago, it's safe to say that Holloway was quite a bit better, right? Movsar Evloev, really competitive fight. And Evloev, I think, is going to be fighting for the title next, at least he should be, against Volkanovski. Crazy competitive fight with him. Right, was able to get it done against Giga Chikadze, who's a very dangerous striker, able to push the pace, able to land some good shots on him, mix it up pretty well. Right, most recently going toe-to-toe with Jean Silva, had some moments. But it was just the reality that Jean Silva, I mean, I think he's one of the best featherweights, but he just had more power. That was the reality. Arnold Allen, to me, was just outgunned when it comes to the power. Not when it comes to the skill, just really the power. So I think in this fight, Arnold Allen is maybe not as dangerous as Mel Costa, but I think he has better footwork. I think he mixes things up really well, and he's got a really, really good gas tank, and we've seen him in these 5-round fights, like against Max Holloway, to where we see he can push a pace. We saw him finish Dan Hooker before. Again, that was Hooker bouncing around weight classes, but still it was impressive. Blitzed him, was able to get him out of there. So Allen definitely does, like, it's not like he has this crazy starching power, but he definitely can find a way to get you out of there, especially if you start to slow down. And we've seen throughout Mel Costa's career, as fights start to play out, especially in these 3-round fights that he's been in, we've seen him slow down a little bit in some of these fights, right? And he's on a very impressive win streak. Now, this one, feel he kind of dove headfirst into a guillotine, but still, either way, very good submission by Costa. Good win over C-Rod. Julian Erosa, what we've seen, this was a crazy fight against Juicy J. We saw him slow down a little bit in this fight, and that's what we've seen from Costa. Starts off very fast. You know, his striking is getting better and better, very creative, good kicks to the body, can mix up the head kick, mix the head kick in there as well, attack the lead leg. And this is basically, a southpaw and southpaw matchup. So if Arnold Allen was an orthodox style of fighter, I could see Costa slamming those kicks to the body, really trying to set up that high kick that we've seen him land on guys like we saw in the Morgan Charrier fight, which was just a devastating knockout, was very, very impressive. And I've been picking Costa in like all of these fights. I've been super high on Costa, man. And then most recently knocking out Dan Ige, we picked him in this fight as well. I didn't think he would knock him out. I mean, Dan Ige is as durable as they come. A very experienced fighter, very well-rounded. We know Ige's been in there with some of the most dangerous featherweights in the world, and Costa was able to put him away with a spinning back kick. So Costa's been very, very, very impressive. Very impressive. His ground game is good. Very, very good submission skills. I think he's the better submission artist here. I think he's got better jiu-jitsu than Allen. In terms of like the wrestling, I think Allen's like got very underrated grappling. So I think in this fight, it's going to play out on the feet. The only way that I really see Allen, if he were to get finished, would be a head kick sneaking through the guard of Costa. Costa landing some sort of creative flying knee or a spinning back kick again or something like that, catching Allen. Like maybe a high kick over the guard that Allen just doesn't see coming, or he rocks him. Allen, decides to grapple a little bit and Costa locks in some sort of submission. But I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think Arnold Allen is going to fight very, very smart. He's got experience on his side. He's been in these big moments. I think Arnold Allen is going to be able to outscore Mel Costa and win this fight by a decision. But I wouldn't be surprised if Costa gets it done, man. The dude is slick. He's very, very good and probably the more dangerous fighter from what we've seen so far in the UFC. I feel like that's pretty safe to say. But Arnold Allen's been in there against good opposition, man. And again, really close fight with Movsar Evloev. A really close fight, in my opinion, with Jean Silva. It was basically the damage of Jean Silva that was getting the job done. And I picked Silva to win the fight because of the power of Jean Silva. And he had moments against Holloway, right? And we know how good Max Holloway is. I think Max Holloway, with respect, would just obliterate Mel Costa and would just, absolutely pick him apart. And we saw Allen have moments. So I think in this fight, again, Allen, he's kind of been hot and cold, 32 years of age. Maybe you could say, what's the motivation? I think Arnold Allen still has a ton of fight left in him, man. This guy is very, very good. Costa's going to have a little bit of a height and reach advantage here. Costa, very, very good camp. Allen, very good camp as well. I think Allen's going to come in with a good game plan to be cautious early, land some good shots. Don't be a stationary target in front of Costa to where he can land some of those big kicks. And if you circle into the power side of Costa, you can expect that head kick to be flying your way if you are Arnold Allen. But I think Arnold Allen's hands are better than Mel Costa, which I think is the advantage for him in this fight. Costa, to me, has very good kicks. But if you could get inside the kicking range, right? He's got some good knees and close, a good tie game, right? Good elbows. I think Arnold Allen is the better boxer. He's got faster hands, can mix up the boxing as well. And I think on the ground, Arnold Allen can definitely hang with Costa. Going to have to be careful if he chooses to do that because of the submission game of Melky Costa. Man, I just want to sit back and enjoy this fight, man. I like both of these guys a lot. Arnold Allen at one point to me was a little bit overrated. Now he's became a little bit underrated. Even though he's the favorite, I think people are going to sleep on his skills a little bit given how dangerous Costa has looked. I completely get if you're picking Costa because of how great he has looked. I like Costa. He's been on a roll. He's very, very dangerous. But I think Arnold Allen will be a safety, crabby veteran in this, and he's only 32 and he's been around for a while, man. And think about the Giga fight. Giga's a real, this was 2 years ago, and Allen hasn't been the most active guy either, right? Which is something, this is a quick turnaround for him, but he hasn't been the most active guy. So that's something that can be a little bit worrisome, but we've seen Allen do this throughout his career. I don't think it'll be a factor, especially this is a quicker turnaround. Took a little bit of damage in this fight, right? Silva was surfing on his back a little bit. That was wild. Looked good in the Giga fight. Looked really good in the Giga fight. I think he'll pressure smart. He won't be a stationary target in front of Costa, and I think that'll be the difference is the lateral movement, the circling off of Allen, mixing in the combinations. I wouldn't even rule a late finish off the table from Arnold Allen in this fight if Costa's gas tank lets him down. I'm not saying that it will, but we have seen Costa. This is a 25-minute fight. You know what I mean? So this is a little bit of new territory here for Mel Costa. 25 minutes to work with. Going to have to be careful with the gas tank. Arnold Allen's been here before. I think we see Arnold Allen kind of craft one up and kind of out-technique Costa and really start to take over as the fight plays out. I'll say Arnold Allen wins this one either 3-2 or 4-1 in this fight. I think Costa can win an early round or two, and then we'll see Allen really start to kind of groove it. Not to rule out Allen taking a fight early as well. I think it's important for Allen to set the tone and not let Costa kind of have his way early in the fight. I think Allen crushes the space, doesn't stand in front of Costa, allowing him to just kind of pick at him with the kicks. I think that Allen turns this into more of a boxing fight. Got to be careful closing down Costa. He's got some dangerous tools up the middle as well. Got to watch the high kick. But I think Allen's boxing will be a little bit cleaner, a little bit sharper. He's got the experience. I think he'll be able to edge this one out and clearly win a decision over Mel Costa. But if Costa gets it done, I could see him out-damaging Allen to a decision or finding some sort of submission or even sliding in a head kick at some point throughout the fight to be able to find a stoppage. But we've seen Allen is durable. We've seen him take some big shots from guys like Jean Silva. I think Allen cruises to a decision in this one.